There was a time when the thought of being alone was frightening. Hi, this is Tracy. If you enjoy this podcast, please share with others. I can be found on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, anywhere you listen to your podcasts. Looking back on my relationships, I've had a few that I would consider long-term. And as the relationship evolved and as things began to break down, I remember being afraid of being alone. And when something is breaking down like that, there's this automatic fear of having to do things all by myself and being alone. And I was afraid of the silence. I was afraid of not having somebody close that was really going to provide support. And so what happens is, I ended up staying longer than I should have. I put off having the conversation. I put off dealing with the issues up front because I was just afraid to be alone. I've reached a point in my life where the silence is golden. I don't know why I was so afraid to be alone. And maybe this is just this natural process of coming into myself and fully coming into who I am or who I am supposed to be. And now when I look at people in relationships and I see the constant banter about things that seem so irrelevant, especially when you're on the outside looking in, I am just thankful for the silence, for the time alone, for the time that I can focus on me and doing things that I want to do. If there is anyone out there who is afraid to be alone, I will say at first, it is a transition. At first, it is frightening. It can be frightening. It can challenge you to really get comfortable with yourself. Those times when I delayed ending things with someone, and it was all because there was a fear of being alone. There was a fear of not having someone. And what does that mean? This time that I've had, though, has truly been a coming back to myself, that I've had to figure out. Who am I and what really matters and what do I want to do? It has been a liberating process. There seems to be a lot of emphasis on partnerships and being in relationships. And oftentimes when you are a single person, there is this stigma that follows you around. There are relationships that you no longer have. Because if you have a friend who's married, you really can't do anything because you're the third wheel. You're the odd person out. There is often an unconscious bias into having you around. At this point, I have moved so far beyond the point of feeling uncomfortable. I've moved beyond the fear of what people think. I've moved beyond the fear of being alone to the point where I have developed my solo identity. I've developed my solo routine. I understand how valuable it is for me to have time and space alone. I'm not going to easily give that up. It's absolutely comical how afraid I was 20 years ago at the idea of being alone. I mean, that poor young woman who was making decisions because she was afraid to be alone. And now it is almost going to have to take an act of God for me to give that up. I mean, it would have to be the perfect partner, which I don't know. I don't have any indications that he's alive and on this planet, but there are possibilities. If you are somebody who is afraid and is in a relationship that doesn't feel healthy, that doesn't feel like it's the relationship for you, and if you're on the fence, the fear of being alone shouldn't be at the top of your list as a reason why you stay. Once I started to do things that I love, once I started to support myself, my hobbies, my interests, and I realized I had not created an identity. I had not created the full scope of myself. This is in no way a diss on anybody in relationships. This is me affirming I know who I am. I know what I need. And I know that peace and balance is one of the most important things that's needed in my life for me to show up in my full self. And I look back at those relationships and I understand that I couldn't show up in my full self. That's where so much of the tension and so much of the dis-ease and the lack of flow came from. Being alone, having silence, having time and space for me to just be in my own energy. That is priceless. Thank you for listening to this podcast of Tracy Talks. Please like and share with others who would enjoy listening to this podcast. And until next time, we meet again.